come quick.
Oh, yeah.
Love come in the table tonight. They don't care where the kid, just as long as it.
Everyone, this is Terry at Conversations on This One Life, and this is the Meeting of Brave Men. And on this podcast is the power of Prince and the symbol and language of love, and on choosing a word for the year. It's today, January 13th, Tuesday, and I'm hailing from Oakland off of Telegraph Avenue. I'm here for the next month doing some research on the campus of Cal in the East Asian Library, digging my way through China. All right, so let's get to it. And here is a quote. Excuse me one second. And it goes like this: live in the presence of now. Live in the understanding of love. Jin Chonghua. In the essay, there are photos, and the first one you're going to see at the top is one of Prince in March of 2016 at the Oracle Arena in Oakland, California. I don't prescribe to the notion of resolutions. Instead, I choose a word I want to either amplify or dismiss out of my own lexicon for as long as needed. The last 2 years of my life, I have been working 3 words, 3 of which I changing really, the use and tense of. From should to shall, would to will, could to can. My dear sister and Jill D. Piazza, hey Jill, she would say in her upbeat whimsy voice when we were in grad school together, Terry, shoulda, woulda, coulda. And she'd have this big old smile on her face. We were brought up in language of our country of origin, of our family, of the playgrounds and the places we frequented. Really, our world was preordained once the language, through symbology, was constructed millennia ago, found and codified by the ancients. In the beginning was the Word. Symbolism began, and language with the Word, a direct injection into Christ with God, the origin from the omniscient species unknown to us all. Consider the artist formerly known as, not the armistice, the artist formerly known as, his iconic glyph is simply known as the love symbol. Did he know something about symbolism, the power? The photo above is one I shot off the large monitors hanging above him in the Oracle Arena. I missed out on his more intimate settings the week prior at the Paramount Theater, where he did 2 stints there. And this is an old Art Deco ornamented building, really beautiful. I saw Gregory Hines there on his one-man tour years ago before his transition. But you know, we were told prior to the beginning of the concert that there was no photos or no taping, no phones. Security was roaming up and down the aisle to police it. You know, I miss these days where we had the Bic lighters and we would just sway and we'd grab our girlfriend or boyfriend and the whole crowd, you know, the Coliseum or the venue you were in, were just moving in unison to a rock ballad back in the late 70s, early 80s. And of course, passing a doobie around. But you know, something in me said that I needed to do this. And so I did some quick shots with my Apple iPhone. I think it was an iPhone 6. And then I turned my audio recorder on and placed it on my lap under my jacket when he finally came on stage. I collected more than 90 minutes of the show, including the third encore. And in that one, I actually have it here down on the link, and you can scrub to 6 minutes to his singing Thieves, Otherwise, it's sheer screaming prior. And as you might be aware, you can hear in the background, that's the actual audio recording that I have, and I'm so grateful for that. A few minutes into his first set, I leaned over to Zabet, my wife, and then said that he did not look well, that he was pale and thin. Yet he performed flawlessly and amazingly the whole night. He came out for 4 encores. Each time the stage rotated 90 degrees with the lone white grand piano shell holding his synthesizer inside. He would walk off and come back in new digs, and the crowd just would go nuts. Balls nuts. By the fourth, half the arena had left, but we stayed, thankfully, so as he reminded us, the rest of us who were there, how connected he was to the Bay Area and the love of us that brought him back time and time again. His first record, when he was just a teen, 18 to 19, was cut up at the record plant in Sausalito, California in 1977, under the Warner label. He was arranger, composer, lyricist, one-man band playing 27 instruments, including doing all the vocals. Genius, right? At such a young age. That show at the Oracle Arena on that night, on a Friday night in Oakland, was the best show I had ever seen from him. It was a solo affair, just him, keys and a mic, and he was ill. And a month later he died. I met Prince in 1985. I was reluctant. A friend had an extra ticket to his Purple Rain tour, and I said, yeah, I'm not that into him and his persona. You know, that purple doesn't do it for me. I'll pass. And then he said to me, you know, Sheila E. is opening up for him. And I said, oh, okay. I will definitely go for her. She was this beautiful, large-haired Latina with that white one-legless spandex design and a badass percussionist drummer. She could kick it on the timbales. Long Beach Arena, Long Beach, California, and that was all I needed to fall in love with this man. I was already crushing on Sheila like everyone else was, but when the lights dropped, minutes went by, and then one gentle spot came on to Sheila, who had just gotten behind this arcing drum kit. And then one stroke of the guitar, a long-held note, and the second spot hit him standing on top of a speaker cabinet, maybe 5 feet high. He jumped off and did the side splits, twirled and sprung up like James Brown, in high heels, no less. He catapulted me into orbit. A little acid enhancement for the experience. But he was owned by no one. He loved to give. His generosity is legend now because of the taxes that have been disclosed. In the deeper depths of this world that most people know nothing about, especially to the causes for the underadvantaged children and communities, and education for artistic support in the schools and in the surrounding areas in Minneapolis and the Bay Area and other places where he toured. These were his causes. His philanthropy was just as important as the wealth of genius in his musical vault. He would come into the Bay Area, a favorite haunting space, and do the Fillmore, the Paramount, the Great American Music Hall, to name just a few, and then take over a smaller audience into somebody's home late into the morning hours, sometimes taking all those proceeds and donating them to these causes. He is number one in my book, a well-loved and boundary-clarified, compassionate instructionals on how to live free and abundantly by the sources of giving. The return is immeasurable in incomprehensible ways. He's a genius musicologist of our times, his time of influence. The tributes pour in from every single musical platform in the world, from rock to opera, to musical shows to classical quartets and orchestras. all of whom stopped in their acts to add him in. Purple Rain was their go-to homage. The day he died on April 21st of 2016, I was treating a patient in the gym in the clinic in Oakland. I walked away as the patient was doing his exercises and went back to the office, and I noted some texts from friends. It said, "Did you hear?" ? And in all caps, "Call me now." Time stopped in a split, and I sat down and began to reveal the unreal. I was called back to my senses 20 minutes later, a colleague saying that the patient is asking where you are. 20 minutes gone by in an instant. Nothing else mattered. There was no time, nowhere else to be but in that space, undifferentiated. There was no sense of existing. I have reflected on this many times and wonder how the effects of love can so stop the world when the world stops for the one you love. The grief in its many colors shows unexpectedly and overwhelmingly that I was no longer conscious of my busy day because it just didn't matter. Well, what's the good word of the year? My word for this year is distortion, as in total harmonic distortion. An audiophilic word to get the purest sound with least amount of incoherent wave patterns. 0.01% THD printed on the back of the audio receivers of those days. Prince was an absolute language decipherer, his greatest symbol in the love glyph as a fuck you to the professional slave mentality in the music business. He took back his power when the Warner contract ended and he signed with Arista and Clive Davis on his terms, and then took his name back and control of his music. His named love symbol remained as his concert platform until his death. The illegal bootleg I recorded makes him timeless and reminds me of my 21st year of life when I met him for the first time in Long Beach, California. He was a total and consummate man in high heels.
Thank you.